Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Welcome back to our live coverage of the Infowars Nightly News. And again, we're going to be doing this live every night at 7 o'clock rather than recording it an hour or two earlier. Joining me now is Leanne McAdoo. And of course, we're going to have Alex Jones continuing this live broadcast on YouTube and on Facebook. As soon as this broadcast here of the Nightly News ends, Alex Jones will be picking up with that at 8 o'clock Central Time. Now, today we had a couple of articles on Drudge Report that reminded us of the move to control our minds. Yeah. And of course, when we talk about mind control, everybody starts talking about, okay, here comes the tinfoil hat stuff. This is very serious, folks. We have to understand that going back to 2013, remember we had Obama's BRAIN initiative. And of course, the BRAIN was an acronym for their project. They funded that, they said, at $110 million. They were going to start doing that in 2014. But then when 2014 came around, Science Magazine reported that they had okayed 10 to 12 years of funding at between $300 and $400 million per year. So all of a sudden, within 1 year, it triples and quadruples. And then they say, well, just with the NIH, National Institute of Health, the funding was going to be $4.5 billion. This is something that the government is very, very serious about. And so we want to talk about the implications of this, and we want to look forward as to where this is going, as well as understand where this is coming from. DARPA, as well as, and the military implications of this are one of the very serious things. But of course, there's other implications in terms of, will you be forced to take a chip in order to buy, to sell? Will you have to take the chip of the government beast in order to have a job, in order to buy and sell? That was one aspect there. But let's take a look at the military aspect of this, Leanne, what they're talking about with the SEAL units.
Well, every single day, David, it seems like we're getting this threat of our robot overlords taking us out, or AI kind of wiping away humanity. But now we're looking at actually building super soldiers. And here, these are super SEALs, to be more specific. So this was a conference that took place in February. The commander of all Navy Special Operations made an unusual request: develop and demonstrate technologies that offer cognitive enhancement capabilities. So they want to boost these elite forces' mental and physical performance. And everybody knows that the SEALs are already very enhanced. They've got amazing skills. They work really hard, but what they have to deal with is that they work too hard. Everyone kind of needs a little downtime. You have to get a good night's sleep. So what this type of electrical stimulation, it's called transcranial electrical stimulation, will allow is for them to perform better with having to work less. And they can, what you might have been able to have really active physical activity for 20 minutes, they can now do that peak performance for 20 hours. And so several SEAL units have already begun actively testing the effectiveness of this. This is already being used for elite athletes. They stimulate the brain.
How they sell it that way.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Talking about this is already being used for athletes, and it's kind of like caffeine. You know, it kind of helps your performance, gives you a hyperelasticity. Yeah. And of course, the group that's putting this out is called Halo Neuroscience, because, you know, if you make a connection to a video game, that makes it cool and trendy, and it's not so threatening. And it's really just kind of like caffeine. No, it's much more than that.
Right.
Much more than that.
Well, and they also talk about the fact that, you know, with athletes, they're very careful because there is that downtime. They want to see the long-term side effects of this. But with the military, they don't. It's almost if the ethics are flipped, because they don't have to concern themselves with the long-term side effects when you're dealing with someone who's on the battlefield, who's putting their life in jeopardy every single day. Well, they just want them to be in peak performance, and who cares what happens if
that's what's so dangerous about this.
Right.
Because normally people would come in and say, well, we need to have some studies. We need to see if this is going to damage the individuals, because this is not something that is being administered in a life-threatening way. It's not something that really is necessary for them to live. And so we need to take a look at this and go, well, wait a minute. This is being used in a military situation. So we're going to say that we can do this until proven otherwise.
Right.
Okay, which is the way the government advances this sort of thing. But let's understand that this goes all the way back to the 1980s, really. Remember Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, the guy who set up the Temple of Set, the guy who went on Oprah Winfrey, dressed up like, looked like Eddie Munster, talking about Satanism and everything? Well, he was a very high-ranking official in the government, and he was talking about, he actually published a book called Mind War, From PSYOP to Mind War, back in the 1980s. And he also referenced extremely low frequency, saying we will control people's moods with ELF. And remember, we had the Navy Yard shooter who said, I'm being attacked. I'm getting these voices that are being sent to me. And he goes, this is my ELF gun, which he carved on the stock of the gun.
Right.
So we look at all these types of things. We look at MK Ultra. We look at LSD. And of course, Leanne, what they were trying to do with LSD was to mentally disable the enemy so that they would not be able to fight. They'd be able to easily come in and take them over. And they were telling us the same thing about MK Ultra. But then, of course, we also know how MK Ultra was used to get wind up assassins. And so when you look at this thing and on the surface of it, they're saying, well, it's simply a little headset that looks like Dr. Dre headphones, but it's going to make people better able to train better, and it's going to give them a hyper awareness and everything. And I look at this and say, well, when they give these headphones out, are they going to be giving them a copy of Catcher in the Rye? Because this is the way we've seen these kinds of mind control projects used in the past by our government, by people like Michael Aquino. And when they talk about PSYOPs, understand that when he wrote about this, he would listed the different branches that they would use this in. He said, we'll use this in psychological operations, in special forces, and civil affairs. And so when you look at this type of stuff, you understand that special forces originally was, and we've had McRaven say that special forces needed to move back to its origins in terms of psychological operations and away from kinetic operations. But they're selling this as if it's going to help them with kinetic actions. And of course, it probably will.
It would.
But the question is, how else will they use it? We've seen this other questions when they talk about PTSD, saying we're going to help them with PTSD. But we're going to be able to remove and implant memories, and that will help them with PTSD. So they always have a way to sell it.
Create a life you can actually live with. And David, you're right. They actually always are pushing this first with veterans, especially some amputees or people who have become paralyzed, to really sell this as a way, well, look, you can see a man who's actually able to feed himself for the first time using his electrical stimulation in his brain. I think everyone is all for that. That is fantastic. That is great. But how far does it go? And that's kind of the questions that we need to be asking.
And how do we control that?
Right.
Any technology can be used for good or can be used for ill. The question is, can we know what they're doing when they have these secret agendas, when they keep this stuff concealed? How do we know what they're doing? How do we know where they're moving with this? How do we have some say-so in this to make sure that we don't wind up with assassins who have their memory erased or different memories implanted? How do we know that we don't wind up with autonomous killing robots when they use it for technology? How do we know that the technology hasn't become self-aware, but it was just hacked by one individual or one powerful corporation who decided that they would unleash mass terror on people? How do we control this technology? We're moving ahead with this technology very rapidly without addressing the ethical issues, without addressing the political issues of how we control it. Everything that our government does now is secret. And when we look at the long history of how DARPA has created the weapons that they've created and the uses that they put them to, that should be something that should concern everyone.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, this has been around for decades. Like you mentioned, scientists already know how to erase your painful memories, replace them with new ones. And they're selling this as a way to people who suffered severe trauma or people with PTSD. It's a way that you can now have memories of a life that you can live with. I mean, that's how they're selling it. It's insane. Exactly when you say we have these super soldiers or these super assassins that then they can do atrocious things and then wipe their memory. But it's not going to end, David, as you've mentioned. They're putting millions and millions of dollars into this, but upgrading humans is going to become the next billion-dollar industry. And so, you know, damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead with all these people who want to become billionaires off the next big industry. They want to upgrade humans. They don't care about the long-term consequences of that. And every day you have this, there's also a story of how humans will lose control of artificial intelligence. So it's always a corresponding article. This is great, but it's also going to kill us.
They're going to sell it as an upgrade. They're going to sell it as convenience. But when we look at this, it's going to become the concern that we have. And if we don't have the kind of political and technological controls, if we don't know what they're doing with this, if they're allowed to have a secret government, that's where the true danger lies. We can have these types of things become incredibly controlling of our lives, knowing everything that we're doing and making it a requirement. Just as we're concerned about the cashless society, we can lose all of our freedom, all of our privacy, and all the control that we have over what's happening in our lives if we don't come up with a way to make government more transparent. Well, that's it for tonight's Nightly News. It's been our first live broadcast. We're going to be doing this every night live. And as I mentioned before, You can now join Alex Jones coming up in just about a minute or so at the top of the hour. He's going to be going live on Facebook as well as YouTube. Thank you for joining us, and join us again tomorrow night at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for the Infowars Nightly News.
I am very proud to announce the introduction of the highest quality Infowars Biome Defense Probiotic. We wanted to come out with the largest spectrum of high quality known probiotics that have been proven to improve overall digestion and health and detoxification in the body. Biome Defense is an exclusive blend of 50 billion live and active cultures from over 23 different probiotic strains that are known to support digestion and intestinal function. Our researchers are confident that we have been able to develop what will be the leading probiotic on the market. Secure your Biome Defense in ultra strength or regular strength at InfoWarsLife.com today and get started supporting your digestive system naturally. We've been testing this formula for years, but this is the limited first run to the public, so please take advantage of it today. Support your own health and support the InfoWar.